Reduce takes a reducer function that you provide and reduces the array down to a single value. It uses an accumulator that is built upon through each and every iteration. The accumulator is always the returned value from the previous iteration. So let's start with the animated example you just saw. Let's create an array of numbers, and what we want to do is reduce this array to the sum of all of the numbers inside of it. So we'll create a variable called sum, and we'll set it equal to nums.reduce. Now reduce takes a function, and the two arguments that this function is going to take are the accumulator and the value. The accumulator is going to be the thing that gets built upon during each iteration, and the value is the item that we're currently on. So what we want to do is we want to come in and say accumulator plus value. And so the way this is going to work is on the first iteration, accumulator is just going to be by default 0. And then the value is going to be 10 because it's the first item. And then it's going to say 0 plus 10, which equals 10, and it's going to return that and go to the next iteration. Well, since the previous iteration returned 10, accumulator is going to be 10 at this point, and value is going to be 22 because that's the item we're currently on. So now it's going to say 22 plus 10, and it's going to be 32. And then it goes to the next one. Accumulator is now 32. It adds 8 to it, and so on until it returns the value. Let's log sum and see what we end up with. As you can see, when I log it over here in this window, you see 94 is the value that was returned from this function. So now let's look at a little bit more of a complex example. Let's say we have a two-dimensional array here. And inside of each array that's nested inside of this external array here, we have the first index is the name and the second index is the age. And that's the case for all of these internal arrays here. And what we want to do is we want to reduce this array to an object that looks a little something like this, where the object has each key being the name of the person and the value for that key being the age. We want to reduce this two-dimensional array to an object that looks similar to this. So what we're going to do is we're going to come down here and we're going to say const people object, and we're going to set that equal to people.reduce. And we're going to use the reduce function to do this. Now, as stated before, it takes an accumulator and a value, but we can also provide, so I'll come in here and put two curly braces to end my function. We can also provide a default value. And we're going to go ahead and put that as an empty object because we're going to want to take an empty object and build an object based off of the content inside of here. So inside of your curly braces, what we want to do is we want to take the accumulator, which on the first iteration is this empty object, and we want to set the key, which is going to be val, which is whatever one we're currently on. And then we want to use the 0 index because that's the name. So if we're on this iteration, which is the very first iteration, we'll call it val. Val 0 is Bob, and val 1 is 32. So we want to set val 0, accumulator val 0, equal to val 1. And then we want to simply return the accumulator, and then it's going to do this for each iteration, and let's see what we end up with in the end. We'll log it here. And if I log it over here on the window to the right, you can see that it creates the object we were expecting. If you guys like this video, please give me a like and a subscribe, and I'll see you next time.